Namaste. Pranams to you all. We are going to start the session. I request all the delegates, student friends, and experts to take their seat and maintain the silence as much as possible. Honorable Minister of States for Ayush, Dr Munjapura Mahindra भाई जी यहाँ पर है हमारे साथ. सभी लोग बैठ जाइए. Please take your seat. Thank you. So this is the plenary session and on the topic India Heals, emphasis on yoga. This session is being chaired by none other than Honorable Minister of State for Ministry of Ayush and Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, Dr. Munjapura Mahindrabhai. Sir, I request you to please come, and I request the Madam to escort the Honorable Minister for Ayush. I also request the panelists, Dr. Bian Gangadharji, Shri Sridharanji, Shri Udit Sethi, Dr. Raghavendra Rao, Dr. Satyalakshmiji, Dr. Vijay Kumar. Please come on the dais and please take your seat. Just give a big round of applause for the yes. Let us welcome the dignitaries on the dais by offering a bouquet as a mark of respect. So let us start this session with a small prayer. Sangachadvam samvadatvam samvo manamsi janata deva bhagam yatha purve sanyanana upasate sanyanana upasate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you. Pranams to you all once again. It's my proud privilege to welcome the Honorable Minister of State for Ayush, Women and Child Development, Government of India, Dr. Munjapura Mahindra Kalubhai. He has been the member of various committees as a member of Parliament in Government of India. And he is also very eminent cardiologist, very well-known social activist in the state of Gujarat. Sir is having a vast knowledge in the medical education, and also always our Honorable Minister of Ayush used to say, "Do rupai ka vaid, 2 rupees doctor." He never charged, he charged only 2 rupees, and he served more than, he gave treatment to more than 10 lakh people. So that much the devotion and dedication. The Ministry of Ayush is very fortunate to have such a wonderful medical doctor and very nice, human being. Sir, on behalf of the Ministry of Ayush, on behalf of CII, on my own behalf, it's my proud privilege to welcome you, sir. Hearty welcome you, sir. So we have with us Dr. Hr Nagindarjee, Chancellor S. Vyasa, he's joining online. Dr. Hamsa Yogendraji, Director of the Yoga Institute. Dr. Bian Gangadharji, he is the President of Medical Assessment and Rating Board, National Medical Commission, and he was the former Director of NIMANS also. Shri Sridharanji, Advisor, Krishnamachari Yoga Mandiram. Shri Udit Sethji, President, National Yogasana Sports Federation, and also the President of Transstadia here, very well-known figure in the Gujarat. And we have with us Dr. Satyalakshmiji, the Director of National Institute of Naturopathy, and Dr. Raghavendra Rao, the Director of Central Council for Research in Yoga and Naturopathy. We have with us the local expert, Shri Dr. Vijay Kumar, who is the Registrar of La Kulish University. So, and the many dignitaries, the ambassadors, eminent experts, and student friends, and all friends, it's my proud privilege to welcome you all. With these few words, I request the Honorable Minister, sir, for his opening remarks. Dr. Munjapura Mahindra, sir.
Honorable Dr. Gangadharji, Honorable Dr. Hr Nagindarjee, वर्चुअली जुड़े हुए मिसिस हंसा जी, योगाचार्य श्रीधरन जी, बसव रेड्डी जी, उदित सेठ जी, सत्यलक्ष्मी जी, विजय कुमार, राघवेंद्र राव जी, and also all the participating delegates. 3 दिन का हमारा ये इन्वेस्टमेंट एंड इनोवेशन मीट, आज हम आखिरी पड़ाव में पहुंच गए और काफी जगह मेरा स्पीच था, काफी प्रोग्राम में एक्टिवली पार्टिसिपेट किया। ऑलमोस्ट ये आज का मेरा लास्ट स्पीच है, लेकिन ये अंतिम पड़ाव नहीं है। यहां से हमारा आयुष न्यू इंडिया का स्टार्ट होता है। It is a matter of great pleasure for me to be part of this unique session India heals, emphasis on yoga. The knowledge of medicinal value of plants and other substances and their usage go back to the time of the earliest settlers. The vast amount of medical knowledge that has come down to modern times is the result of long evolution through trial and error and exchange of know-how between diverse communities and regions. The process of exchange and assimilation continues, and today traditional medicine practice are obliged to accommodate to the norms of modern medicine. There is growing awareness among the scientific community and the general public about intrinsic value of traditional medicine, and these systems have entered the mainstream to complement biomedicine. The challenge today is to integrate the best of different healing traditions to meet the healthcare need of contemporary society. We find immense reference about such things. Vasudev Kutumbakam is the mantra of all Indians, which means the entire world is a family. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya is our daily prayer. We always aspire for Loko Swastha Sukhino Bhavantu. Even though during the British colonial period, official status of the traditional healing system were relegated to secondary role and the Western medicine become dominant. Still, these systems continue to serve the ailing masses in their own way. Post independence, the government of India made several efforts to promote and popularize the Indian system of medicine, so much so that as on date, it is having an independent ministry to deal with these systems. In last few decades, there has been growing interest in alternative form of therapy globally. People across the globe not only visit India as a tourist, but also reap the benefit of traditional system of medicine for their various health needs. India has become one of the most sought medicinal tourism countries as on date. More than 5,000 years old tradition yoga is now regarded in the Western world as a holistic approach to health and is classified by National Institute of Health as a form of complementary and alternative medicine. Yoga is a form of mind-body fitness that involves a combination of muscular activity and internally directed mindful focus on awareness of self, the breath, and the energy. Four basic principles underline the teaching and practicing of yoga as a healing system. Principle number one, first principle is human body is holistic, entire compromise of various interrelated dimensions inseparable from one another, and the health or illness of the any one dimension affect the other dimension. The second principle is individual and their need are unique and therefore must be approached in way that acknowledge this individuality and their practice must be tailored accordingly. The third principle is yoga is self-empowering. The sadhak, his or her own healer. Yoga engages the sadhak in healing process by playing an active role in their journey towards health. The healing comes from within instead of from outside source, and greater sense of autonomy is achieved. The fourth principle is that quality and state of the individual mind is crucial to healing. And the individual has positive mind state, healing happens more quickly. Whereas if the mind state is negative, healing may be prolonged. Yoga is recognized as form of mind-body medicine that integrates an individual's physical, mental, spiritual component to improve aspect of health, particularly stress-related illness. Viewed as holistic stress management technique, yoga is form of complementary and alternative medicine that produce a physiological consequence of events in body reducing stress response. The scientific study of yoga has increased substantially in recent years, and many clinical trials have been designed to assess its therapeutic effects and benefits. The regular practice of yoga promotes strength, endurance, flexibility, and facilitate characteristics of friendliness, compassion, and greater self-control, while cultivating a sense of calmness and well-being. Sustained practice also lead to important outcome, such as change in life perspective, self-awareness, and improved sense of energy to live life fully and with genuine enjoyment. The practice of yoga produces a physiological state opposite to that of the flight or fight stress response, and with that interruption in the stress response, a sense of balance and union between the mind and body can be achieved. Yogic practice enhance muscular strength and body flexibility, promote and improve respiratory and cardiovascular function, promote recovery from and treatment of addiction, reduce stress, anxiety, depression, and chronic pain, improve sleep pattern, and enhance overall well-being and quality of life. As the country battles COVID-19 pandemic on war footing, India's traditional system of yoga has been established as a mean of boost immunity, improve overall health and well-being. Lack of proper sleep, poor nutrition, and leading a stressful life all lead to a weakened immune system and vulnerability to sickness. The system of yoga can be better preventive and healing tool beside promotive and rehabilitative methods. If it is adopted by the people on regular basis, there will be a less chance that we spend on medical expense. Thanking you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. You had given a shown a very good path for all the speakers to in which direction we have to move and make this entire discussion very fruitful and help us to make some policies in the interest of the common public. The very beauty of this system of yoga is it goes with any medical system, goes with the Ayush system, modern medical system, even in many traditional system across the globe. Because of its importance in the mind management and also the spiritual dimension of personality, which has been addressed from the beginning in the teachings of yoga. So that's why the healing aspects have been developed later part, but yoga as education and education to give the training to the body to keep always fit to live 100 years to achieve the goal of life. That's the entire living is a spiritual living. So that dimension, that education takes us to many other dimensions. Then in the recent past, it's mind-body medicine. Mind-body medicine. It has been developed in the management of many non-communicable disorders. And in the recent COVID pandemic, the Indian traditional system of yoga has been established as a means to boost immunity, improve overall health and well-being, especially for the isolated patients and in the many other stressful conditions. It has come to the rescue. Now, during the last 2 years, yoga has gained much popularity because of its wider dimensions. So to address all these issues, we have more than 8 people, eminent people from different parts of the life. They are addressing us. Just to say when Patanjali introduced Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. And he said three important words: Ashuddhikshaye, Jnana Dipti, and Viveka Khyati. So, such a wonderful science. So, whenever you give, and what is the result you are going to get? Patanjali mentioned that. Then he proceed on giving the technology. That's why the philosophy, we have to see the science, convert into technology. What you are seeing in the forms of apps, they are the applications we are giving. With this respect, and the first keynote speaker from for this session is Dr. Hr Nagindarjee. He is the Chancellor of S. Vyasa University, and he is serving as a president of Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhan Samsthan, Bangalore, since 2000. And he has also served as more than a decade as a Vice Chancellor of Swami Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhan Samsthan, S. Vyasa, deemed to be university. And everybody knows the contribution of Guruji is popularly known as in the field of yoga therapy and research. He has more than 150 research publications and guided more than 32 PhD. And most importantly, he was the chairperson of the International Day of Yoga Committee. And under his able guidance, many of the protocol has been brought in, and all these things, the development you are looking in the last 7 to 8 years, somewhere the Guruji has guided us. And with these few words, it's my privilege. Guruji has joined online. It's my privilege to welcome Guruji. I do hope so. All of you welcome him by a big round of applause. Dr. Hr Nagindarjee.
My dear brothers and sisters, I welcome you all to this global summit, India Heals, emphasis on yoga. Our Honorable Prime Minister, in his brilliant speech, made it clear to the world community at large that yoga is not merely yogic postures or physical exercises. It is a science of holistic living. It's a way of life. And based on the teachings of Swami Vivekananda, he said that yoga has benefits for everyone with its holistic vision of Jnana Yoga, Raj Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga. The four streams of yoga: working with the intellect, Jnana Yoga; working with the willpower, Raja Yoga; working with the emotions to gain mastery over the emotions, the Bhakti Yoga; and bring all that to our action, that is Karma Yoga. Convert every action into a yoga. So, with this holistic vision, the UN announced that June 21st should be celebrated throughout the world as International Day of Yoga. What a response. People have started enjoying the wonderful streams of yoga embedded in a nice protocol that were developed in India, which contains all these features set in a very subtle way into the 35 minutes yoga protocol, which can be practiced by everybody. And more people should practice this. Apart from the world records that we had in the first International Day of Yoga, we know that yoga has started spreading around the globe. And in India, the Ministry of Ayush set up this task of bringing this to 20 crores of people last year. Almost 90% of that we achieved. This year, it's much more. 25 crores of people in India itself. Every nook and corner, in every village, it should go. And people should practice yoga. And that's the one that can prevent diseases, promote positive health, apart from dealing with different ailments. Therefore, under the Indian Yoga Association, associated with the Ministry of Ayush and the Ministry of Health, a huge pan-India program was taken, and we made a thorough survey of people who have diabetes type 2. And as we have seen, India is racing, reach China, which is number one in diabetes, to become the diabetic capital of the world. Therefore, right away, our Honorable Prime Minister said we have to contain this and could not become the diabetic capital. And we started yoga, bringing yoga, and wonderful results have started coming up. And the American Diabetic Association gave this as the biggest research that was done during the years, for which an award was given there. Why yoga? When we have such fantastic medical allopathic system, which deals with all these diseases so effectively, why yoga? You know, the tremendous contributions of the modern medical world in the last century. We were able to deal with infectious and contagious diseases and the new ways of handling them through vaccines and antibiotics became the forerunner, and this became the hit all over the world, and people started accepting this evidence-based, research-based allopathic system, and which is called the modern medicine, the conventional medicine today. All people all over the world accepted this as the real norm of dealing with this. When the WHO, World Health Organization, announced that we'll bring health for all by 2000, people were so enthusiastic. But soon came a bigger challenge of what we call today as non-communicable diseases. Asthma, diabetes, hypertension, heart problem, epilepsy, migraine, irritable bowel syndrome, cancer, all psychiatric problems, neuroticism and psychosis, everything started hitting headlines. And the number of sufferers went on increasing more and more. And naturally, the modern medical world started developing suitable and very powerful pharmacological interventions and surgical interventions. And as we progress, more and more such powerful pharmacological medical interventions have coming up, and unfortunately, we have not been able to give complete relief or cure these ailments. Once a diabetic, ever a diabetic. Once you have hypertension, it's for life. Once you have cancer, your days are numbered, have come to pass. Why? With such tremendous research and fantastic achievements of the conventional medicine or the modern medicine or the allopathic system, why this is happening? I see a basic reason of that. That is, modern medicine is based on modern science. Modern science developed in the western part of our globe. Newton and Descartes, they started the ball rolling almost 400 years back. And tremendous research with the best of the intellectuals in the world, we started understanding more and more of this entire creation. Soon we found this creation infallible. It is very complex. And we do not know how even a stone drops down, how the rain occurs, how the thunderbolt occurs, how the lightning occurs. What to talk about gods, goddesses, and whatnot? No, we can't do that. Therefore, let us start understanding the physical world first. Once you complete understanding physical world, then you can go to other things. This is how science started. Now we are in a fortunate position that today we know everything in the physical world, and every object in the physical world is made out of molecules, atoms, protons, neutrons, fundamental particles. They're all made of quarks. There are packets of energy, and everything is nothing but energy, electromagnetic field and the gravitational field, and that is the field, energy field, we can say. And therefore we understood the structure of this whole universe. And then we also understood the laws that govern them, Newtonian laws which are studied in high schools. But as we went deeper and deeper into the small world of electrons, protons, neutrons, then we had to go to the higher laws, more generalized laws of theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, and probabilistic mechanics. And therefore, we had a complete understanding of the physical world in its structure and also the laws that govern them. Therefore, anything physical, we have been a big success, putting man on the moon, building skyscrapers, underwater tunnels, information technology, and dealing with all these infectious and contagious diseases, and even the virus. We were able to deal with this, the pandemics of corona. But it took time to build up the vaccines and build up the medicines and all that. But we had the solution. But these ailments of the non-communicable diseases are not merely physical. They are multidimensional. mental restlessness, emotional upsurges, deep-rooted psychological conflicts, all are at the base of this stress and the stress-related NCDs that we are dealing with. Mental restlessness, anger, greed, jealousy, hatred, infatuation, arrogance, all are shattering. Our entire lifestyle is changed in the modern era of science and technology, and we are developing tremendous amount of stress at not only the physical level, but the mind, every level. And the root cause for all these NCDs are contained in the mind, in the Manomaya Kosha, and that's called as Adi. Adi is a big imbalance, uncontrolled speed of the mind. That imbalance causes the problem that Adi percolates down to the physical frame through the Pranamaya Kosha, bringing imbalance in the prana, comes down to the physical body, a stress reaction, triggering the hypothalamus, bring about the autonomic imbalance and the endocrine imbalance, which comes down to the physical body. Depending on which organ is the weakest, you succumb and you have problem. What all we do in the modern medical interventions is pharmacological interventions and surgical intervention can deal only with the physical body. So what is needed is not only to deal with the prana and the mind and the emotions and the intellect, everything we have to do that. And therefore, we have to have a total approach. So the modern medical experts have come to understand that the allopathic system alone will not do. We have to add on the complementary systems, the traditional systems. Therefore, the World Health Organization started this traditional system as a complement to be done. And among all these things, yoga has hit the highest acceptance, not just number of papers going on. And since it's non-pharmacological in approach, it can be easily an adjunct to the present pharmacological interventions. And that's what's to be done. Therefore, India is the forerunner of this heritage of yoga, which is thousands of years old. And with a broad spectrum of Jnana Yoga, Raj Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, an integrated approach of yoga therapy has been evolved. And we work at the body level, prana level, mind level, emotional level, intellectual level, and with a complete understanding of the whole creation. And that can deal with these ailments effectively. And we have a large number of research papers that have come, nearly 800 from Vyasa University itself. And this has shown the usefulness of yoga to these modern NCDs, particularly for diabetes, for hypertension, for cardiac problem and cancer. There is a lot of research going on and it can become more and more effective. Therefore, India has started offering this total solution to the people at large, and people from all over the world have started coming here and also trying to learn yoga, yoga therapy and its implications everywhere. Standardization has started taking place to deal with these ailments, what type of yoga you have to give, how much you have to give, and when you have to give. All these things have been brought forth. And the first condition is it should not cause harm. That's the first condition. Then the benefits of yoga should come up. And that's what is happening today. Therefore, we invite all the members of the Global Summit to partake by coming over to India and then participating in the big movement that's taking place by the setting up of the international health services and also bringing integrative health in all of our hospitals. And that is a big call that we're giving in the context of this global summit, which is coming up in a such big way. And we welcome you on and wish you all the best for prevention and promotion of positive health and to deal with this modern NCDs to meet the challenge of the modern era. Namaskar. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, Guruji, for joining us. And you rightly emphasize stress plays an important role, and yoga has the solutions and many protocols help us to elevate the stress and its consequences. Now it's my privilege to once again introduce and welcome Dr. Hamsa Maji. She has to come yesterday night because of the last moment, some emergencies. She could not come and join us physically, but she is going to join with us online. Everybody knows, I particularly knows Maji from more than 3 decades. In the early 80s, when TV is not so popular, she used to come in the afternoon around 3 o'clock, 3 to 3:30. Yoga for household. Very simple way Hamsaji used to explain about the importance of yoga for the household, especially for women. Dr. Hamsa Jaydevanji is currently the director of Yoga Institute, Mumbai, the world's oldest organization of yoga center, which has celebrated its centenary last 2 years back. She is the leading face of householder yoga and has conducted over 1 lakh theoretical and practical sessions of yoga till date. A very renowned first lady of yoga, she made the nation proud by sharing the stage along with Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji at the first International Day of Yoga in 2015 at New Delhi. Recently, the Yoga Institute has received the Prime Minister's Award for its contribution to the promotion and development of yoga. With these few words, I welcome Madam and also request Dr. Hamsaji to say a few words as an keynote speaker. Ma Hamsaji.
Namaskar to you all. I regret that I couldn't meet you all in person due to some unavoidable circumstances here. But the technology has become very strong and we can still contact each other like this. And I'm glad to connect with all of you through this video. Today, as we are meeting together to discuss yoga education, I feel that it needs to become part of every academic syllabus. Yoga education can strengthen our education system and help it creating a healthy and mature society. None of this will be possible without qualified teachers. These professional teachers trained in the science of yoga can revitalize not only the education system, but also everyone's life. This demands that yoga education could be formalized and conceptualized in a right way. We need to make sure that yoga teachers study yoga not only for their career development, but also for their self development, primarily self development. I always say that every yoga teacher should have three things. These three qualities are more important than any qualification or certificate for a yoga teacher. First quality, being a yoga student. Second, understanding about others. Third, feeling responsible. Know that in life and in yoga, there is no end to learning. So teach yoga not as a teacher, but as a student. The course name may be called Teacher's Training Course, but you should always be in a student's mode. Believe that you are always in a yoga learning course. It is important for teachers be lifelong students. That enhances their understanding of yoga. Our own students can teach us a lot. Your students questioning, doubting can teach you a lot. A good teacher is one who gives practical exercises to students and that exercise which he himself also is practicing. A good teacher, when he's teaching yamas, don't hurt others. First step of yama is ahimsa. Don't hurt others. Don't be rude. Don't compare. Here, teacher himself should also practice that teacher doesn't get angry, teacher doesn't compare, teacher doesn't put students down. The second quality which yoga teacher should have is to understand somebody's mind, to understand somebody's intention, read somebody's mind. All this quality can come only if teacher tries to understand his own mind, tries to read his own mind correctly. By trying to understand your own emotions, behavior, reactions, you will slowly develop the ability to observe others, understand others very well. So always observe yourself and understand every state of your mind. Understand the nature and attitude of your student and deal with them accordingly. Some may be difficult students, but then spend some extra time after the class. Develop friendly relations with such students. Finally, remember that our culture is such a culture where it is mentioned Guru Devo Bhava. Being a teacher is a position of a huge responsibility. Just as a patient approaches doctor with a hope, so does every student approach yoga teacher with hope. It is important for a yoga teacher to train the student to look within. Like why one gets angry, what is the root cause of certain behavior, how to control the mind, etc. You deal with the mind of a person, the power and responsibility in you is almost unparalleled. A change in the mind, however small, is the beginning of much larger changes outside. For example, if you could convince your mind to wake up early in the morning, you bring about vast changes in person's health. Their kidney, lung, and heart, everything would be grateful to you. This is the power yoga teacher holds. Every yoga teacher must feel this responsibility. They should approach this career with seva bhav to serve the humanity and help people. Such an attitude contributes best to the society. Today, yoga has become a question of a booming career. Globally, people need yoga and hence yoga teachers. Today's changing lifestyle has caused many health issues. Yoga seems to contain powerful answers. The need for this answer demands more yoga teachers. And I feel India, the birthplace of yoga, will also create professional, compassionate, and duty oriented teachers. Here in the Yoga Institute, we have produced more than 1 lakh teachers, and they are now spread all across the globe, spreading the message of yoga. One of our primary course is Teachers Training Program, and we had given highest importance to this one particular course because if the teachers are trained well, then our half job is done. Other than that, we have been guiding in making yoga content for UGC, NCERT, in yoga education, etc. Past 25 years, we have been teaching kids from BMC school. The Yoga Institute is doing its part to its maximum capacity. So let's take yoga forward together. Once again, I congratulate the Ministry of Ayush for organizing such an event. I thank Honorable Minister Dr. Munjapura Kalubai, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Dr. Hr Nagendra, Dr. Bian Gangadhar, Yogacharya S. Sridharan, Sri Udit Seth, and my dear Dr. Basav Reddy. I hope to see you all in person very soon in near future. Let's work together in this direction. Let's develop a beautiful world together. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. To rightly emphasize the healing principles of yoga lies in yoga education, and they are the fundamental principles. So one has to be first a sadhak or a practitioner, then he can be a teacher. A good teacher can only a good therapist. Rightly said the importance of yoga teacher. Thank you, madam. Now we are switching over from online mode to the physical mode. It's my privilege once again introduce and welcome Dr. Bian Gangadharji. He is now the President of Medical Assessment and Rating Board, National Medical Commission. But he is very popularly known in the yoga community, in the Ayush community, for his rich contribution for the research on yoga, mental health, and many other dimensions related to mind and its management. He is the professor of emeritus professor of integrative medicine, and as I said, he is the former director of NIMANS. And when he was the head of the department, and NIMANS has established an advanced center And now, first time in the history of medical sciences, an integrative medicine department has been started when he was the director of the Nipans. And a yoga cadre has been developed in the medical college first time. A big round of applause for his contribution for the research in yoga. With these few words, I invite Professor Gangadharji to say, express his views on India Heals. Dr. Gangadhar.
How can I change? Honorable Minister Shri Munjapura ji, my fellow speakers on the stage, and all the distinguished delegates in this meeting. I will take less than 10 minutes, hopefully, to present to you some of the research that has happened in the country and in the world on one aspect of yoga. We always talk about, there's a saying in Sanskrit, Chita dahati nirjeevam, chinta dahati jeevanam. You are continuously worried and depressed, you are likely to damage yourself. And how yoga can be an instrument in not just reducing psychiatric or mental conditions, but also correct the bodily mechanisms which has been caused by these mental stresses, and how we bring back the correction into the body by way of these yoga practices. Now, I'll have to take you to what we call as the spiritual dimensions of health. And Ayurveda always emphasized a spiritual dimension. And more recently, in the last 30 years, the WHO is also considering how to introduce the spiritual dimensions of health into clinical practice. And in fact, people are beginning to realize that yoga practice has a spiritual dimension. That feeling of connectedness which spirituality talks about has been used as a means to get the psychiatric status well, the depression getting better. And yoga is the important role, a toolkit in bringing out these spiritual dimensions into our health. And how does it do it? And what are the bodily mechanisms in this is what I would like to talk about, using mental health approaches in yoga. In other words, using yoga for, say, various psychiatric disorders. There is a list of psychiatric disorders I have put up on the screen here, and there are many more. In all these psychiatric disorders, yoga has been proven to be useful, and there are, of course, several challenges. Many of these have been addressed, and one of the challenges which we have addressed, I'm illustrating in this brief talk about the biological markers of yoga which have been studied with respect to mental health. And the work that has happened in yoga practice, yoga in application in psychiatric disorders, has made an impact in the international scenario as well. For example, this Canadian guidelines for mood and affective disorders has included yoga as being, there is a sufficient body of evidence to introduce yoga as an adjunct treatment. Likewise, the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, UK, has also introduced yoga as a potential add-on treatment in the treatment of chronic psychotic disorders, schizophrenia, and affective disorders. So, put together, evidence clinically has been built up. What I intend to demonstrate now is a list of biological changes, biological markers, which lead to answering this question, Chita dahati nirjeevam, chinta dahati jeevanam. How my bodily corrections also happen while I am treating psychiatric disorders with yoga. One of the, these are the series of issues that I'm going to be talking about. One of them is the effects of yoga on the body through brain. One of the practices in yoga is chanting Om. When Om is chanted, some of my limbic structures are deactivated. When my limbic structures are deactivated, I get calmer and my emotional levels come down. And as a consequences of this, or as a consequence of this inhibitory action on the emotional system, there is also what is called as increases in the levels of a neuroinhibitory hormone, neuroinhibitory transmitter called as the GABA. The GABA transmitter can be studied by various methods. Before and after yoga, we are able to demonstrate what is called as the cortical silent period. Before yoga and after yoga, it gets longer, indicating that my brain inhibitory mechanisms are better. We may all be wondering, why should a brain become inhibited? Why should the brain become deactivated? The emotional centers are deactivated. Emotionally calmer brain has a significant role in actually making the individual become less depressed. In fact, even in depressive disorders, I don't want you to pay attention to the details of the graph, but what is important is to demonstrate experimentally that these mechanisms have a role subsequently towards the end of my talk, what it has. The inhibitory mechanisms were deranged in depression, and you gave yoga, the cortical silent period gets longer when compared to merely walking. Walking also produced antidepressant effects. Yoga also produced antidepressant effect, but yoga started correcting the brain mechanisms. And this, we use the same cortical silent period to demonstrate this effect. Elsewhere, people have also shown in the brain itself, this inhibitory neurotransmitter levels went on to increase following yoga, and this was possible to be demonstrated by using a method called as the magnetic resonance spectroscopy. You do all this, you become calmer, brain tends to inhibit itself on this emotional arena, and then what happens? Your excitability and your stress levels come down, and so the cortisol, which actually damages the brain, I'll come to that towards the end, cortisol levels drop if you practice yoga. And in depression, cortisol levels are higher, and you gave yoga, more people obtained drop in the levels of cortisol following yoga intervention. And with this, brain repair mechanisms actually get better. You reduce the levels of cortisol, you are more likely to repair your brain more dynamically. The repair mechanism is mediated through a brain chemical called as the brain-derived neurotropic factor. This brain-derived neurotropic factor actually is lower in depression compared to healthy subjects. And once you start treating them, these levels go up, and these levels going up is very well demonstrated with yoga intervention. So yoga intervention causes inhibition of the emotional structures, lowers the levels of cortisol, improves the brain repair mechanisms. And these brain repair mechanisms getting better by this brain-derived neurotropic factor, we have been able to replicate more recently with another method, which is an in vivo method in experimental animals. In both ways, we have been able to demonstrate that this brain repair mechanism following yoga in humans is well elevated following the practice of yoga. This brain-derived neurotropic factor is unfortunately lower in depression, and so depressed individuals continue to lose the gray matter in the brain. And you are chronically depressed, you are more likely to be losing the brain structure. And we also demonstrated that in people who lost cortisol, they obtained higher levels of the brain-derived neurotropic factor. Again, illustrating a link between the anti-stress effects of yoga and a facilitation of the brain-derived mechanisms. And elsewhere, people have shown that chronic practitioners of yoga don't lose their brain gray matter with age. The sloped line indicates, like in all of us, as we get older, we lose our gray matter. We keep doing yoga regularly, we are less likely to lose the gray matter as much as the others do who do not practice yoga. This is again indirect supporter that the brain is protected, and perhaps the other parts of the body as well are protected if one is continuing to practice yoga. But here I'm using this particular slide with respect to yoga applications in mental disorders. And we were able to demonstrate even in elderly individuals who had what we call as the minimal cognitive impairment, also called as the mild cognitive impairment, where they have some memory symptoms. When you give them yoga, 6 months later, that yellow speck you see is a spot where we call as the hippocampus, the memory brain, the memory retaining part of the brain, gray matter, which actually gets larger when they practiced yoga for a period of 6 months. So yoga actually protected the brain, and this hippocampus shrinking with age was prevented in a 6 months practice of yoga. And lastly, brain connectivity gets better. In fact, yoga is a connecting, and increased connectivity in the brain also gets better following practice of yoga. One of the systems of connected brain areas is called as the default mode network. This default mode network is both in the anterior and in the posterior parts of the brain. This network gets better when a person has practiced yoga. And this is a group of schizophrenia patients. One illustrative patient I have demonstrated here. In schizophrenia patients, this network gets deranged. Schizophrenia, you know, is a disconnection of the brain, of the mind, and it manifests as an illness. And in these individuals, when they practiced yoga, their connectivity got better. And as you can see, the red one got brighter into the yellow one in the posterior network, also to some extent in the anterior default mode network. And lastly, I wanted to bring your attention to this slide. These are the areas of the brain which gets lost. The gray matter shrinks when a person is chronically depressed. The chitta dahati nirjivam, chinta dahati jivanam. And yoga has a potential to not only reduce the chinta, but also reduce the dahanam. The chinta dahati jivanam is also completely and comprehensively addressed. I thank all of you for listening to me. Most of the work done here was in the Department of Yoga, Integrative Medicine at NIMHANS, and I thank all my colleagues who helped me in this. There is my email. In case there are any doubts, you can always mail to me. I will be happy to answer. I thank all of you for being patiently with me in this.
Thank you, Professor Gangadharji. As we are talking about the research and evidence needed to quantify the healing systems in Ayush, and there are ample number of research papers published in peer-reviewed index journal, and few of the important findings of the research has been presented by Professor Gangadhar. Now, it's my privilege to introduce and welcome Sridharanji. And Sridharanji has come from a very famous yoga tradition or lineage of Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram. T. Krishnamacharya is known as the father of modern yoga. He lived 100 years and lived a yogi life and healthy life. And he is the living demonstration of the true yoga master. And he has developed a very unique yoga therapy technique from the Yoga Rahasya. He written a book. And his disciple, the famous B.K. Sayangarji, T.K. Videshikacharji, Pattabhi and others. So Sridharanji is the proud student of T.K. Videshikacharji and teaching yoga for the last more than 4 decades. And he was the managing director, managing trustee of the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram for more than nearly a decade. And since last more than 15 years, he is being associated with our institute and Ministry of Ayush. Now he is the Vice President of Indian Yoga Association. With these few introductory words, I request Sri Sridharanji make his presentation on yoga therapy. Sri Sridharanji.
Namaste, Dr. Munjapura Mahindra Kalubai, Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Ayush, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, Dr. Basavareddy, Dr. Gangadhar, and other co-panelists, and distinguished gathering, members of the gathering. I will start my session with a prayer, Vedic prayer, which talks about health. And you must know that Vedas is timeless, and they talk about health in that. Om Bhadram Karnihi Bhishrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangaihi Stuštuvagam Sasthanubhihi Vyashehem Devakitan Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vruddhashravah Swasti na Pusha Vishvavedaha Swasti nastarkshyo Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dhadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This prayer is unique, and you can hear the word Swasti, Swasti coming again, which is wellness, a state of equilibrium. And the mantras are so powerful in yoga therapy. Even as you hear this small prayer itself, you can see some amount of health that comes to us. The very vibrations will make it. Swastino, Brihaspati Datatu, let the Supreme Being give the wellness to us. So, what I am trying to explain out is, see, yoga therapy existed even before the introduction of Western medicine into India. How do we know about this? Is the Yoga Sutra, about which Dr. Gangadhar said a few words, is one of the oldest texts on yoga by Patanjali, which is considered easily 3,000 to 5,000 years. But Patanjali says that yoga exists before me. I am only giving them to you in this fashion. So whatever I have talked about in the Yoga Sutra existed even before me. But even if we take Patanjali as the origin first, it is 3,000 to 5,000. The word Vyadhi comes in that, in the Yoga Sutra, in the first chapter 30. It is called illness. In Sanskrit, Vyadhi is illness. The commentators are largely defining what that Vyadhi is. It is talking on the basis of Ayurveda about the vitiation of the three doshas and all. So Vyadhi is considered as one of the antaraya, impediment, and it is considered as equivalent to chitta vikshepa, which means it is a mental distraction and confusion. That's what totally the presentation of the Gangadhar was. So in the ancient days, they have considered Vyadhi as, the names are different. It is a mental chitta vikshepa, distraction and confusion. Now let us go to what is the solution. Immediately, they talk about meditation. And Ishvara Pranidhanatva, Tasya Vachakaha Pranavaha, Tajjapaha Tadartha Bhavanam. These are the sutras, which says, do a particular type of meditative practice which will bring down the mental agitation. The moment the mental agitations are brought down, that itself the healing process starts, and healing process continues. Of course, when you are talking about meditation, Yoga Sutra is very clear. It is Ashtanga Yoga which is going to give you the meditation, because actually the asana practice takes pranayama, pranayama takes you to the dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So it is not simply meditation separately. It is a holistic approach of combining all the 8 limbs of the yoga. And one more important thing in yoga therapy is the approach is similar to Ayurveda. and or equivalent. That's where they share a lot of, universal application. Heyam, Hetu, Hanam, Upaya. And this is unique approach because a problem is not directly taken up from the symptomatic level only. Symptomatic level is taken, which is, yes, there is a headache, there is a blood pressure rise, we are taking them. But we will try to understand the hetu for that. What is the cause? And we will have a goal, and that is where the individuals completely differ. We don't have courses for blood pressure or these things. We have a course for the individual as a holistic in yoga. Upayam comes the means, and it is again individualistic. Upayam is separated for every individual. Even though two people may have the same similar problem, the upayam or the basket of tools will have to be taken and put together differently. So let us, and it is like an Ayurveda approach. Now, human system in yoga therapy is understood differently. In fact, as we were saying, it was prior to Western medicine, the human system understanding existed. It takes into account Ayurvedic way of looking at the human body, but beyond that also, there are 5 segments into the human system: Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. From that it starts. And mostly it talks about the basic 5 elements. Our system is made up of the basic 5 elements and the 3 gunas and how they work together. Say, though they go to the minutest part, which are the 3 gunas, which cannot, like an atom, which cannot be seen, but their operation is what is happening in our body at the gross level, subtle level, and all. So the human system is different for every one of us at all levels, including the mind. And yoga therapy looks at the human system holistically. So the present approach, now slowly we are moving back towards an integrative medicine. It is just not complementary, supplementary. I have the privilege to be working on the yoga therapy for the last 40 years. Even when I was in a different profession, my teacher put me on into the yoga teaching, and I did part-time, and later for 20 years I was full-time. I became full-time. So my first student he allotted to me is from therapy only. And what I have been finding over the period of time is we were called as complementary, supplementary, but those words are not there. It is integrative medicine. Integration is to join together. Why integrative medicine came? What is the reason? It is because by choice, the care seeker is taking an integrative medicine. You may say, don't go to this system, don't go to that system, but they would be taking and they may not disclose. Instead, better accept what the person is doing, and we will go by integrative. So only thing is how to integrate. How to integrate, and that is where most important point is healing systems are basically divided as invasive and non-invasive. And the invasive persons, in fact, we in 1990s did a study of how to integrate the various systems. And our teacher, Desikachar, along with a doctor who is a student, they did an interview, collected all the interviews of all the independent medicine systems, including Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, homeopathy. Everything was done in 1990s, which was published as a paper in the newspaper and become a book. And I'm giving the book to a minister to show how we have done it long back. And what was the outcome of that is, I was a part of that study which was going on. In those days, we are talking about 30 years back, the allopathy, Ayurveda, Unani and others, they will say, we don't want to deal with those people because they are all having chemicals. I don't know what the chemicals are. But we are ready to go with yoga because it is non-invasive. Of course, pranic healing, Reiki. They are also in the same pedestal where it is non-invasive. But today, the scenario is different. In fact, we have integrated medicine institutes which are coming up. So, but even then, the therapy, yoga therapy, is very unique because it is non-invasive and nobody will have anything to do as an against it. No form of chemical is given. Yoga comes under non-invasive category and acceptable all other forms of yoga prepares the body in a way to give way for the medicine to work by removing all the impurities, which we call as malas. So doctors can give medications. But what happens? The medicine doesn't work because there are impurities. Along with the impurities, the medicine joins and becomes a very big impurity. And we are unable to throw out the impurity. Yoga has the unique way of throwing out the impurity just by exhalation. That's all. The best form. In fact, the sutra says, Prachardana Vidaranabhyam va pranasya. Just exhale, exhale, exhale. That itself is a great medicine. But how to exhale? We are exhaling always, but there is a way of doing. We need to learn it properly. So to remove the impurities is more important. When you remove the impurities, the chemicals that are given inside starts working. And even if there are any side effects, on account of the medications, they are also removed. It is the best form of preventive, direct application and follow-up stages of illness, yoga. That's what we say. If someone comes and says, I'm going in for a surgery, we say, you please go ahead, go for the surgery. But prior to surgery, come to us, we will teach you some breathing so that you can take the surgery. After the surgery, you start coming to us. Sometimes people even breathe properly during the surgery itself to see that their ailment is brought down. And direct application, we have the way in which directly all the illnesses are also addressed. Follow-up is the most important in yoga therapy. We are doing it at various levels. Healing is from within and prana holds the key. This is the most important point. Healing is from within. We are not manufactured by in any company. We come out of the nature. And nature has given the potential to heal itself. And it is the prana which holds the key. Yoga tools, particularly pranayama, addresses this aspect. If I have an ill health, yoga says it is prana prakopa. The prana is not reaching those parts. And it is because of the mala there. Remove it. And it reaches. If a person comes to our teacher and says, I have, Krishnamacharya, and says, I have a problem in my throat, he says, chakra here is not receiving the prana. So every part of them has got chakras. And the chakras are those which feed the prana to the nearby places, organs. Finally, what are the advantages? Holistic, takes mind and body together, talked about by Dr. Satyalakshmiji and Gangadhar and others. Non-invasive and hence no side effect. But let us be very clear that yoga therapy, if not properly given, or yoga for that matter, can also give more harm. Hatha Yoga Pradipika talks about it, and there is a verse which says that yoga can remove all illnesses when it is done properly. If it is not done properly, it will create illnesses. It talks about certain illnesses which will come, like asthma and other illnesses itself is given. So we need to be very, very careful, and yoga therapy training is very important. Make scare seeker independent and feel more confident. That is most important. Can work together with any other system. What's need to be done is seminars to bring all systems together and present their approach, which I have said we did 30 years back. Now we are going to start doing it. Submit the various research reports and case studies. Remove wrong impressions from followers of other healing systems about yoga therapy. That way we are presenting our work to all others. And thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Sri Sridharanji. Just At 12 o'clock, 12 noon, there is going to be another important session in this August Hurling. Therefore, we had to rush and complete the entire session. My humble request to all the speakers, let us brief and put forward the main points. Now it's my privilege to introduce and welcome Professor Dr. Satyalakshmiji. She is the very proud director of National Institute of Naturopathy under Ministry of Ayush. She is the very well-known naturopath and yoga therapist serving from more than 3.5 decades in the public domain. And under her leadership, the NIN, the Naturopathy Institute of Naturopathy, has achieved several dimensions in health and healing. With these very few remarks, I request Dr. Satyalakshmi a few words on India Heals. Dr. Satyalakshmi.
Namaste. Respected Ayush Minister, Dr. Munjapura ji, and all other distinguished speakers, and our Special Secretary Ayush Pathak sir, and the Joint Secretary Kavita Garg madam, all other fellow Ayush colleagues, and delegates. So I just will broach the important areas where yoga can work as a healing tool. So first of all, I would like to spend more time on young minds because there are many youngsters attending this program. So yoga can offer, particularly for girls, because the kind of environment in which we are living, we are ending up eating too much of sugar, and the metabolic syndrome has become a major issue, and obesity has become a major issue. And women bodies being more sensitive, metabolic syndrome related diseases and polycystic ovarian disease, and then resulting in hell lot of health problems. So yoga can be a very, very simple and very effective tool to address all these issues, because any amount of ability to exercise restraint, control, self-discipline can come easily through regular practice of yoga. Hence, it is possible. And who doesn't want to look good and energetic and young and beautiful? So yoga can provide all that. Body sculpting is absolutely possible with doing regular practice of yoga. Then maternal care is another very area which can be looked into seriously by using yoga as a healing tool, particularly preconception to antenatal to safe delivery and natural delivery practices, and then very healthy parenting also, and post-delivery practices. I think if yoga can be integrated in these areas also, and India can lead the world in making a healthy world. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Madam, highlighting the importance of yoga and healing in a very short and very cute manner. Now it's my privilege to welcome and introduce Shri Udit Sethji, a very young and dynamic entrepreneur, a sports lover, and he is the president of National Yogasana Sports Federation, recognized by Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. And he is the head of the Trans Stadia Group. You all know in the Ahmedabad, a wonderful Trans Stadia has come under the PPP mode with government of Gujarat. And he want to be introduce sports and make it an industry. And several he has to promote yoga and also Yogasana as a competitive sports. And last few years of interactions in the ministry and personally, he has several innovative ideas how to take up this where yoga in the various dimensions and also provide an opportunity for the sports person to recognize globally. With these few words, and I request Sri Udit Jetsi put forward his views. Sri Udit Seth.
Thank you, sir. First of all, a warm welcome to our Honorable Minister and thanking him and the Ministry of Ayush for giving us an opportunity to participate today in the Global Ayush Innovation and Investment Summit. It's a really path-breaking initiative that has been taken. Before I start my small points of view, I'll request the AV team to just play a small video. This entire stadium and everything over here is actually designed for you. And please have a great time, performing and showing what you can. This event is just Yogasana is going this way, and it is going to be a part of this that day. Definitely, our youth can come forward and be a part of this Yogasana game. I invite all of the athletes to be a part of this Yogasana sport of the tomorrow, the sport of Olympics day by day.
जो भी यहाँ पर बच्चों को फैसिलिटी मिली है, तो इट वाज अमेजिंग.
States 159 participants. दीक्षित भारत ये ऐसा खेल है से आप सब ने साधना माना करते हैं स्पोर्ट्स होते हैं. How many of you actually do yoga? How many? And at what age did you start? 0 to 10? 10 to 20? And 20 onwards? That's right. So when we talk about Yogasana as a sport, the entire mandate that was given by the Ministry of Ayush and the Ministry of Sport was to take Yogasana to a sporting ecosystem because we wanted to create the youngsters to come into Yogasana as a sport. Today, when people come into yoga, they come for a illness, they want to de-stress, they want to, understand meditation, spirituality, they want to understand themselves. But kids have to be attracted through something which is exciting. And therefore, Yogasana as a sport is something that we've worked very hard in the last 2 years. Before me, our Honorable Director of Morarji Desai was the president of Yogasana Sport, and he had incubated it, and then he handed the baton over to us in the ecosystem. It's about reinventing the entire thought process of Yogasana and packaging all the yogas for television. For example, if all of you are into yoga, and you're looking at the television, you're going to be very bored if you are just seeing somebody doing one asana, because it's just still. But if we can package it like in Kabaddi, we can package it like in Kho and take it to television, then that's something which is very exciting. And therefore, my mandate as the president of the National Yogasana Sports Federation is to join all the 30 states and create national championships, world championships, and create an ecosystem which is economically viable for the athletes. We want that we train our judges, we train our coaches, we train our athletes and give them a full-time employment opportunity through the sport and take it to television. Our vision was set by our Honorable Prime Minister that yoga should be an Olympic sport, but to get to the Olympics, it's a very tedious, roadmap. We have to get at least 80 countries into it. We have to have a continental setup and really have curriculum not only for athletes but even for coaches, etc. So one of the things that we've been working very hard on is to create a framework for Yogasana. So first of all, we've launched a ranking system, a point system, and a gradation system. We've actually started working with the Morarji Desai National Institute of Yoga for a electronic scoring system where we use biomechanics and cameras to judge the athletes on the stage. So it's like integrating technology into yoga and using artificial intelligence to actually create more and more refinement in the asanas through the computer eye. One of the other things that we've started working on is to emulate karate. So for example, in karate, you have a white belt to black belt gradation. So you know how good you are against the person next to us. So we are actually creating 8 levels of Yogasana with more than 230 asanas and about 4 levels of coaches. So every coach will have at least 2 levels of coaching. Like in FIFA, we have a gradation, and as they go into higher levels, they can get better remuneration, better employment opportunities globally. So this year, with all this going on, and you've seen the national championships that we did in a very colorful and exciting way in Ahmedabad just recently. This year, we are going to be working towards the World Championship. One of the things that I'm requesting the Ministry of Ayush, which they are working on, is to create and enable the world setup for Yogasana, where every country actually participates. The Ministry of Sport is also working very hard with us on this. We want to also ensure that as part of our growth this year, we would launch the Yogasana Super League. Like an IPL, we want to go into a television show, which is going to be like, I would say, like a Indian Idol or a America's Got Talent. So what happens is with that, our athletes get a platform on a television channel and better remuneration. So I think yoga in itself is right now a great way to better yourself individually, but now we want the youth to come into it. And finally, one of the aspirations that we have is that Yogasana as a sport should at least contribute 50% of India's medal tallies when we go into Asian Games, Commonwealth Games, Olympics. So it's a very good opportunity to showcase India's heritage globally, and therefore one of the things that was announced the day before yesterday by our Honorable Prime Minister was that we'll have the Ayush passport or the Ayush visa. So my request to the Ministry of Ayush is to also enable the Ayush visa for Yogasana athletes that want to come into India and perform in the Yogasana Super League as well as Yogasana World Championships. And with that, I would once again thank the Ministry of Ayush and our Honorable Minister and all the august panelists for giving us opportunity and taking Yogasana as a sport to the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Uditji. You are always a bundle of ideas and a lot of enthusiasm and also the energy. And under your leadership, definitely Yogasana sports will grow to the new heights. Now it's my proud privilege to welcome my esteemed colleague in the ministry, the Director of Central Council for Research in Yoga and Naturopathy, Dr. Raghavendra Rao. He is a scholar and PhD in yoga science. And he hails from the, he completed his bachelor's in BNYS from the very famous SDM College of Naturopathy and Yogic Sciences. And he has done a lot of research on yoga for cancer care and palliative care. And during the last 2 years, he has initiated many research projects to create evidences for the acceptance of yoga as a therapy in the various disease conditions. So with these very few introductory remarks, it's my proud privilege to welcome Dr. Raghavendra Rao. Dr. Rao.
Thank you, Dr. Basareddy. Honorable Minister Munjapura, distinguished speakers on the dais, senior officials in the Ministry of Ayush, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great privilege here today to be present before you in this August gathering to discuss and deliberate on India Heals, emphasis on yoga. We heard about the philosophical context of yoga, how yoga can be used as a therapy. We heard about the research insights and evidence, scientific evidence behind the functioning or behind the beneficial effects of yoga on health and disease by Dr. Gangadhar. Now we need to look at how you can use yoga into practice, clinical practice. And this is the major important ball game today. When it comes to using yoga into clinical practice or integrating yoga into cancer care or any other care for that matter, a high level of evidence is required. And that comes through insightful research from premier institutions like NIMHANS, AIMS, and other institutions. We need to bring collaboration, collaborative effort, develop good amount of level 1 evidence, we call it as, so that we can put these in these guidelines. Let me give you a small example. Before I came to this Ministry of Ayush, I was in an oncology care setup, and I've been working in this setup for about 30 years. And what I saw here was yoga as a therapy is not just because it is there that yoga should be used as therapy. It is because of public demand. Let me give you an example. We did a very big survey across Chennai, Bangalore, Mysore, Nanavati Cancer Hospital in Mumbai, cancer hospitals in Ahmedabad, Delhi, Calcutta, and Cuttack. 1,800 patients were taken in the survey, and we looked at patients who were newly diagnosed with cancer patients, did a survey to see whether they are taking any form of Ayush therapies along with their cancer care. And those were all newly diagnosed cancer patients. 25% of them took recourse to palliative therapies or Ayush therapies. And in the advanced cases, 90% of them took recourse to Ayush therapies. And what was interesting was, about this 25% who took in the primary stage of the cancer itself, early stage of cancer itself, 60% of them did not tell their doctor they are taking this therapy. That means to say there is a disconnect between modern medicine as well as Ayush when it comes to integrating both these two together. And this is where we need to bridge the gap. How do you bridge this gap? Creating level 1 evidence, putting this evidence into practice. And how do you do this? Putting this into guideline documents. So we've been fortunate enough to start the first integrative oncology department in 2014, which was the first one to be accredited by European Society for Medical Oncology. It's a very premier body in Europe, which deals with guideline documents in management of clinical practice and management of cancer. We'll also be privileged to be having good amount of research which came from India, which got into the guideline document in National Cancer Care Network, UICC, American Society for Clinical Oncology, and Society for Integrative Oncology in US. And because of this guideline document, yoga has been now used for management of fatigue in cancer, management of nausea and emesis during chemotherapy in cancer, used for management of depression and anxiety in cancer patients, and people have the advantage of getting insurance. And this is what we need to create. That's the kind of structure we need to create today by generating evidence, putting them into guideline document, putting them into clinical practice so that the patients can get proper benefit out of it. And the allopathy as well as the mainstream medicine as well as the Ayush streams of medicine can come together in generating such kind of evidence. And that is what CCRN as an institution under the patronage of our ministry is trying to propagate, to bring this wholesome integration in this one. And truly, India can be a destination when we start focusing yoga as a therapy, because all this research evidence can come from here, because we have huge treasure house of knowledge, large number of yoga experts, now yoga teachers, and if they all come together along with modern medicine and modern medical people, we can really create wonders. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Raghavendraji. Lakulish Yoga University is a very famous yoga university inaugurated by our Honorable Prime Minister a decade ago. And Rajeshri Muniji, a very famous yoga master. Under his able guidance, it has been developed and it's conducting many education and research program. Dr. Vijay Kumarji is the registrar of this very important university, and is an eminent scholar and did his yogic studies in the very prestigious S. Vyasa University. Now it is leading from the front to promote yoga therapy and research. So it's our privilege to welcome him and also request him to say a few words on India Hills. Dr. Vijay Kumar.
Thank you very much, Basareddy ji. And my humble pranams to all the delegates and Honorable Minister Sahib and all the renowned personalities on the stage. As our legendary speakers have detailedly elaborated the entire concept of yoga and philosophical applications of it. And when it comes to current scenario, if we see today's scientific innovation and technological advancement has deluded us to the belief that for every illness, there is a pill, there is a drug for it. But unfortunately, if we see the current prevalence of non-communicable diseases, existing healthcare system is of below average, because we cannot even comprehend the basic medical requirements which has thrown towards healthcare from the versatile medical scenarios. So in this scenario, if we see the future of this current scenario would be integrating the existing evidence-based traditional as well as conventional medicine under one platform. That will be the future of healthcare system. Otherwise, I don't think there will be another possibility to fulfill or suffice the very basic healthcare need of our existing population, not only for India, even for the global platform. So I think this is the basic message we all got from the pandemic. If we see the pandemic influence, that clearly state that the existing healthcare system is not sufficient. We need to focus on building a better integrative as well as holistic model of healing at the global level. So the policymakers and stakeholders, all of us who are in this field or who are related to this field should come together, join our hands together to establish a very sustainable and sufficient healthcare facility for the future generation, and hope we will be able to deliver the same. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay Kumarji. Now, with the permission of the chair, I will conclude. The very nature of human being is Sukha Pravritti and Dukha Nivritti. Everybody would like to be happy always, but Dukha follows, the pain follows like a shadow. This is the wonderful philosophy what every human being has to know. Yoga recognize this. That's why Patanjali said, Heyam Dukkham Anagatam. Dukkha is inevitable, but it can be prevented by the practice of yoga. That's why the philosophy, then the educationist, and the therapist and researchers. The panelists is a bundle of group of 2 Padma Shri awardees, Dr. Nagindarjee, Dr. Gangadharji, national awardees, Ayush awardees. All are here and they put forward their views on various dimensions and possibilities of yoga in health and healing. Many people say that yoga is just a philosophy, but I said the philosophy into the science, science into the technology, into the appliances. So now, like Udit Sethi has mentioned, all these the researches and etc. to be put into the technologies and take to the world and make it as an grow it as an industry. So that's the very objectives of the summit. So on behalf of the Ministry of Ayush, I thank the Honorable Minister, Sir, Dr. Munjapura, Sir, always is very kind and generous and guiding from the front. And also our Honorable Minister of Ayush, Shri Sarvanand Sonowalji, is always guiding the entire ministry to take to the new heights under the able guidance of our Honorable Prime Ministers. So along with the panelists, we have with us our Honorable Additional Secretary, Sir, Sri Pathak Ji, and Joint Secretary, Madam Kavita Madam, and uh, ambassadors and dignitaries and all the student friends and Ayush enthusiasts. On behalf of the ministry, I thank you one and all for your gracious presence and we make this session very fruitful and useful. Thank you. And before we conclude, let us pay our respect by presenting a memento to all the dignitaries on the dais. So I will present one by one because time is very short and we'll close the session in another 2-3 minutes. Thank you one and all. We conclude this session with Shanti Pata. Oh. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kashit dukha bhag bhave, ma kashit dukha bhag bhave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jai Hind. Thank you.